Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Whew. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
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 Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Deo, Deo.
Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shake is all go down. Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shake is all go down. Corrosion to her thighs, erosion of her pride. Baby's got a shooter. Baby's got corrosion now. Corrosion now. Baby's got it.
All right. Good morning. How's everybody doing today? Happy Friday to you. It is Morning Extra. I'm your host, Uncle Warren. As the Chiron clearly states, we used to call it Chiron in TV. I don't know, some people call it that because they're wannabes. I call it Chiron too. Well, nobody cares. I don't know what that's about. That's some internal struggle that I'm having. So, if you put in the chats here, for some reason, Facebook is acting very childish and not working today. So my apologies if you're watching this in the future with flying cars and you say, why isn't it on Facebook? Well, Facebook be a bitch sometimes, but I put in the chats that July 1st is the second anniversary of Morning Extra. That you may be asking yourself, well, what happened to the first anniversary? I kind of forgot about it. I did, and I almost forgot about this one. It had been so close. I was like, oh, wait a minute. 2 years. So tentatively, Wednesday evening, I plan on doing a special Morning Extra in the evening. I know. It's morning somewhere. And we'll see how that goes. But I'll let you know, as always. Let's say hi to everybody. We got Willie Bragg in the house. Good to see you. Thank you, Willie. Appreciate you. Got Laine P. What's going on, Laine? Willie, you're so wonderful. The sky is falling for Fox News. World means the socialists are coming for us. I know, right? After thanks for the 10 spot too, by the way, Willie. That's very sweet of you. As always. Yeah, I guess I mean, New York, Mom Donnie got a few of his people in, but I'll be as optimistic as I'll wait and see what happens with those cats. Because we've read this book before. We've seen this movie before. We've heard this song before when AOC said she was, I don't care if I'm a one-term congressperson. I'm going to cause a ruckus. Ruckus turned into fuckus, basically. Like that there. So we got Laine P. We got Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show, too, in the house. What's up, Chuck? Good to see you. Miguel, good to see you, my friend. Always a pleasure. I think that's it so far. So we have a lot of news to get to today. I find it weird that it's late June, right? We're already in summertime, and here in Chicago it's only 63 degrees. It's I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like 63 degrees. Sounds good, but what's going on? I bet you the people in Europe would love 63 degrees Fahrenheit. They're feeling like 63 degrees Celsius over there. So, but we'll get to that shortly. We have a lot of news to get to. So we're going to do that right now as we check in with Venezuela. Heard about the earthquakes down there and a few other places too. We'll talk about that. Venezuela earthquakes toll doubles amid desperate rescue efforts. So this happened Wednesday. The death toll from twin earthquakes in Venezuela more than doubled today to 589, Interim President Delcy Rodriguez said, as rescuers boosted by international teams raced to find survivors beneath collapsed buildings. Rescuers used heavy machinery, but also just bare hands in a race to pluck out people caught under the rubble in the earthquake zone west of the capital, Caracas. Hold on one second. My apologies. At one of the flattened buildings, AFP, that's a news service, saw workers using sledgehammers to break the debris and calling for absolute silence to detect cries from survivors underneath the rubble. However, the abrupt increase in the official toll was only expected to keep rising. Regrettably, we now have 589 people who died, Rodriguez told a televised meeting with military and civilian officials. The previous official toll had been 235. I think it was 188 yesterday. While Health Minister Carlos Alvarado said late Thursday, that another 4,300 people were listed as injured. Help has begun to arrive with Salvadorian, Swiss, and Mexican rescue teams already on the ground, as well as a senior U.S. military official landing in Caracas to make sure the oil was okay. To oversee Washington's relief efforts. Yeah. Nations around the world have pledged to send rescuers money and aid, with the U.S. saying it was deploying 2 warships, transport planes, and helicopters, mobilizing $150 million in aid. Didn't they already have warships down there? In the worst hit state of La Guaira, north of Caracas, Amparo del Giudis dug with her bare hands at a huge mound of concrete in search of her son. My apologies for butchering the names. Guidis, maybe that's Guidis. It is a lot of rock, and with bare hands it's impossible, she said, exasperated and flailing at the rubble. Elsewhere, a young girl died after crying out for help for hours as onlookers listened helplessly, local residents told AFP. We need people, military personnel, to come and help so we can get her out, said resident Danny Rizzo. Earthquakes of similar magnitude claimed more than 200,000 lives in Haiti in January 2010 and 73,000 lives in Kashmir in October 2005. The dead include foreigners with 9 Portuguese nationals, 3 Spaniards, 2 Brazilians, 2 Chinese nationals, and 1 Italian Venezuelan so far among those killed. 56 Portuguese citizens and 99 Spaniards were missing or otherwise unaccounted for, according to their respective governments. Aerial photographs of La Guaira posted on social media showed one crumpled residential complex after another. A rescue worker speaking off the record told AFP conditions were precarious with a shortage of trained personnel and significant technical limitations. AFP reporters witnessed residents looting a local supermarket in the city, of course, because when there's catastrophe, let's start stealing shit. Venezuela's director of the International Rescue Committee, Nicole Cass, described the situation as catastrophic. Others, offers of support poured in from around the world, with Switzerland, Spain, France, Portugal, and Mexico among those sending specialists and rescue teams China, India, Brazil, and war-battered Iran, even Iran, all offered help, while Pope Leo the 14th has sent an initial 100,000 euros, around 114 grand, in aid. The U.S. is especially closely involved in oil-rich Venezuela after having ousted and arrested President Nicolas Maduro back in January. UN Chief Antonio Guterres said he was deeply saddened by the disaster as the global body vowed to assist Venezuela. Threatening to complicate relief efforts, the capital's main international airport is in La Guaira and has been closed after suffering serious damage. Venezuelan opposition leader and Nobel Peace Laureate, peace in quotes, Maria Corina Machado called for the release of all political prisoners, both civilian and military personnel, saying they should reunite with loved ones as the country is mourning. Always looking for an angle. Venezuela's northern coast sits on a boundary between the Caribbean and South American tectonic plates, but has not experienced a significant quake since 1997, when 73 people died. Another quake in 1967 killed 236 people. And of course, Venezuela is right there next to that ring of fire, that goes around the Pacific. We'll talk more about that coming up. Wednesday's 7.5 magnitude earthquake was the most powerful since October 29th, 1900, when a 7.7 magnitude tremor struck offshore. This week's quake was felt in neighboring Colombia, where residents in Bogota evacuated buildings as precaution. Tremors were also reported in several cities in northern Brazil, according to the country's seismic monitoring network. Hello? Not going to work? Not going to work? Not going to work here anymore. So it wasn't just Venezuela, right? So four massive earthquakes struck different parts of the world in a short 8-hour time window on Wednesday. There was two in Venezuela. There was a 7.2, and then about a minute later, a 7.5 hit. So they got the double whammy there. And these are the areas here. Northern California, there's Venezuela there. There was one off Japan, and I believe, I'm not quite sure what that is. We'll get to it in a second. So let's talk about the 5.6 magnitude earthquake hits Northern California. So at 8:10 a.m. Pacific time, a 5.6 magnitude earthquake was felt by thousands in Northern California. The quake's epicenter was less than 7 miles north of Redwood Valley. You can see right here, that's the epicenter there. According to the USGS, more than 5,000 people felt the earthquake, with residents from San Francisco to Eureka reporting shaking. Seismologists recorded 4 aftershocks following the initial earthquake. According to Fox Weather, some residents reported damage from cracked home structures and caved-in roofs to fallen pictures and vases. And that's, here's the Venezuela one, where it was... Actually, it was a 7.5 and then a 7.2. And normally, it was a 7.2 and then a 7.5. Normally, what you have with earthquakes, you have a large earthquake and then you have the aftershocks afterwards, which are usually lesser in magnitude. But in this case, they just got worse. So a 6.9 magnitude earthquake shook the northern coast of Japan. So around 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, same day, massive 6.9 magnitude quake struck about 18 miles east off of Kuji, Japan. There it is right there. And I think isn't that where Fukushima is too? Isn't that in northern Japan? I could be wrong. According to the U.S. Geological Service, the epicenter of the quake was recorded at a depth of 31.6 miles. Though the quake happened in the sea, there was no danger of a tsunami and no serious injuries were reported. Like I said, the ring of fire is very volatile, right? So let's take a look at this here. So this is the Pacific Ring of Fire. It's not necessarily a ring so much as it's like a big horseshoe. So it starts off down here in southern South America, the Peru-Chile Trench, and then you get up to the Middle America Trench, and of course you have the San Andreas Fault right here, going up through Alaska with the Aleutian Trench, and then around to the parts of Russia, China. Well, actually, parts of Russia there. Japan right here, going through the Philippines, and Indonesia. Of course, Indonesia had its fair share of earthquakes too, and lots and lots of deaths. And swinging around here through New Zealand as part of that ring of fire. Highly volatile tectonic plates. So there is a price when you live on coastal areas like that, these coastal areas a lot of times are connected to these plates. And although Venezuela technically isn't, right there on the ring of fire there, it's very close. It has its own tectonic plates there too. Chile is the one that usually just gets rocked by earthquakes, and they've had some really bad ones. I think the one in the 60s killed thousands of people too. Yeah, so hearts, thoughts and prayers. Hopefully more than that going out to these people in Venezuela who they've had a hell of a year. They had their president kidnapped, and now these earthquakes have done some damage. And like they say in the articles, the death toll is probably going to be higher. They're going to find more injured people too as well. So it's terrible what's going on down there. It's terrible what's going on in Europe too with the heat, as Europe on high alert as killer heat sets to move east and south. Yeah. So basically they're getting the summertime New Orleans treatment over there. Health authorities across Europe were on high alert today as a killer heat wave progressed across the continent, prompting alcohol bans, and the cancellation of mass gatherings in France and melting road surfaces in Germany. Now you have to remember, like, oh, so what? It's hot. It's summertime. It's supposed to be hot. They're not used to having this level of heat, right? 80s, 90s. In fact, I saw an article about some store opening, and there was just like, it looked like Black Friday. People were rushing in there to get air conditioners, fans. It's insane. They're not used to that level of heat, because that level of heat rarely hits Europe like that. Scientists said the heat wave, which began on June 20th, was the worst recorded in Europe, where the climate is changing faster than anywhere else on the globe. Temperatures were peaking in France and Britain, where records for June have been broken. But in Italy, the heat was expected to intensify into the weekend, bringing summer's first readings of 40 degrees Celsius, or 104 degrees. That's some Texas shit right there. That's Texas heat. And it's not a dry heat either. It's nice and humid too. So 104 degrees plus humidity, and that temperature feels a lot worse. Paris hit a June record of 40.9 degrees Celsius on Wednesday. Even though temperatures were expected to ease, authorities braced for more casualties across the continent. Cultural landmarks have been forced to close, and farming has suffered. In Britain, doctors said the hot weather was affecting critical equipment such as MRI scanners in hospitals. Paris police asked organizers of major events, including the Solidays Music Festival, to cancel. Organizers of the Pride Festival said they would reschedule. So yeah, here's look at all that red. France. I'm very shocked about France, right? So difference from normal high of 1961 to 1990. So we're looking at Paris, 98 degrees Fahrenheit. We do Fahrenheit over here in the United States. It's really kilometers I can kind of gauge, and then milliliters, I don't even really bother with that. But Celsius is kind of a different thing. I know 100 is boiling and 0 is freezing, but it's the in between that gets a little nutty. Extreme heat caused the surface of the A2 motorway in Germany to buckle and rupture over several lanes on Thursday evening. In Austria, the National Rail Company warned that train tracks could buckle in the coming days. Britain's Met Office extended a red heat alert covering a large area of southern and eastern England into a third day for the first time, with a temperature of 36.9 degrees Celsius. Meant the British record for the hottest June day had been broken on 3 successive days. Hundreds of schools remain closed, and London's emergency services said calls for help were up 50%. A teenage boy died after entering a lake in central England. Died after entering a lake in central England. Was the lake boiling? A red alert was issued for almost the whole of the Netherlands, and many schools were closed as temperatures up to 40 degrees Celsius were expected, inflicting misery on visitors. I was expecting hot, but not this hot, 20-year-old New Zealander Ruby Prescott said, hoping for cooler air inside Amsterdam's main art gallery, the Rijksmuseum. Rijksmuseum? Electric fans flew off the shelves in Britain, and Asian air conditioning manufacturers reported a European sales boom. In France, state-owned power utility EDF pledged to spend 80 million euros, about $90 million, on cooling systems for schools and daycare centers. Welcome to the new normal, maybe. Most of the housing stock in normally chilly to mild northern Europe is not built to withstand such heat, but rather to keep it in. According to the most recent data from the OECD-affiliated International Energy Agency, issued in July last year, household ownership of air conditioning in Europe remains relatively low at around 20%. Yeah, it gets cold there, so the housing and buildings there are designed to keep the heat trapped in, and then during the spring and summer, it's usually mild or rainy or cloudy, so it's not usually that hot. But now... the heat wave, which has pushed temperatures as much as 18 degrees Celsius above their seasonal average, according to the Reuters climate monitor, is being driven by a weather pattern known as an omega block. This traps a bulging ball of hot air over regions for extended periods, with cooler air on its fringes. The present heat wave, which moved up from the Iberian Peninsula towards Western Europe, will begin shifting by the end of the month, hitting Central Europe and the Balkans, the World Meteorological Organization said. Scientists said the record-breaking heat wave would have been virtually impossible without man-made climate change, which has made this week's stifling nighttime temperatures 100 times more likely than they would have been even 2 decades ago. Over the region studied, this heat wave is the most severe ever recorded, the World Weather Attribution Group of climate scientists said in their latest analysis. So population affected by weather alerts, daily population under active weather alerts grouped by category. So red is the extreme heat warning, yellow is an extreme heat watch, and then the green is a heat advisory. And you can see right here, from starting around June 23rd, Tuesday, is starting to tick up, but it said it's supposed to go down by the weekend. Hillary Williams, clinical vice president of Britain's Royal College of Physicians, said overcrowding and heat in hospital wards were putting patients, staff, and infrastructure under severe strain. People are far too hot, she told BBC Radio, adding that some critical equipment, including MRI scanners and cancer treatment machines, was being affected by the heat. French doctors and hospital workers reported an increase in emergency calls and treatment. Patrick Pelou, a doctor for emergency services in Paris and president of the Association of French Emergency Room Doctors, confirmed that there had been 55 deaths in the care of emergency healthcare services in Paris in the space of 24 hours. 55 is enormous. Normally it's 3 or 4 over 24 hours. It's really excess deaths due to the heat wave. That is clear. And we here in the United States have had our share of heat waves that have killed the elderly in New York, here in Chicago as well. But this is something just totally beyond the pale for Europe. Like I said, during the summer months, it's usually kind of like Seattle. little rainy, cloudy most of the time. It doesn't really get that hot. And plus you have that Gulf Stream. There's a whole scientific thing about the Gulf Stream and how it cools the north and how it may be failing too. And if the Gulf Stream fails, you're looking at probably the beginning of another ice age. Yay! So good news to Europe. You may get frozen over if you don't do that. When I came to Henderson, North Carolina, up in the mountains for a wedding on August 1st, 1998, it was 63 degrees and breezy up in the North Carolina mountains. Not Titty Mountain. I heard you on your show the other day saying you went to Pilot Mountain, Willie. I put Titty Mountain in the chat. I know you saw it. You're like, damn it. I want to talk about Titty Mountain. So all our European friends who watch this show, please stay cool. And not in a Fonzie way. I mean, get your temperature down a little bit, okay? Because that heat ain't no joke. Kill your egregores. What's going on, buddy? Good to see you. So the Supreme Court's been up to some fuckery, as usual. U.S. Supreme Court scales back Roundup cancer suits in win for Bayer. Yay, capitalism. The U.S. Supreme Court reined in thousands of lawsuits pursued in state courts accusing Bayer of failing to warn users that the active ingredient in its Roundup weed killer causes cancer, handing a major legal victory on Thursday to the German company. I did not see that coming. The justices in a 7-2 decision overturned a jury verdict in Missouri awarding $1.25 million to a man named John Darnell, who said he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma after years of exposure to glyphosate and Roundup. The Supreme Court agreed with Bayer that a U.S. law that governs pesticides precludes failure to warn claims that are brought under state law from moving forward in court. Yeah, it's funny how that works, huh? And here's the cool whip on the shit Sunday. Bayer shares were up about 16% in the wake of the decision. Trump's administration backed Bayer in the case, of course, because that's par for the course. Conservative Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who authored the ruling, said the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, has concluded glyphosate does not cause cancer and has not required a cancer warning on Roundup. Oh, the EPA? You mean a government agency said so? So it must be true, right? Oh, you sweet summer child. The law preempts Darnell's claim because, quote, it would require Monsanto to add a cancer warning to Roundup's label, even though federal law requires Monsanto to use the EPA-approved label without a cancer warning, Shithead wrote. Liberal Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, in a dissent joined by conservative Justice Neil Gorsuch, conservative, said that Darnell's claim would impose equivalent labeling requirements on Monsanto that the federal law requires and so should not be preempted. Jackson called the ruling remarkable and regrettable, for it unjustifiably closes the courthouse doors to state tort plaintiffs like Darnell. Bayer acquired Roundup as part of its $63 billion purchase of agrochemical company Monsanto in 2018. More than 100,000 plaintiffs have filed cases in U.S. state and federal courts alleging a cancer link, and the German drug-making and crop science company had said that the lawsuits could threaten its ability to supply the herbicide to farmers. Oh, you can't, that would be horrible if you couldn't spread cancer, right? You pieces of shit. The torrent of litigation already prompted Bayer to remove glyphosate from its consumer version of Roundup. Bayer said before the Supreme Court ruled that a decision in its favor could largely end the Roundup litigation. Bayer CEO Bill Anderson praised the decision, saying it's good for American farmers who want to get cancer. This litigation is enormous cost for the company and has impacted public trust. The decision brings overdue justice on an issue that should have been clarified much earlier. It's time to put it behind us, Anderson said. Bayer's shares before Thursday's gains had been down just over 50% since the company acquired Monsanto. The U.S. Supreme Court reined in thousands of lawsuits pursued in state courts accusing Bayer of failing to warn users that the active ingredient in its Roundup weed killer causes cancer, handing a major legal victory to the German company. Look at that. Hey, the money. The company emphasized throughout the litigation that the EPA repeatedly found that glyphosate does not cause cancer and approved its product labels without a warning. The EPA. Facing billions of dollars in potential liability, Bayer announced in February a proposed $7.25 billion settlement to resolve tens of thousands of current and future lawsuits. So if it doesn't cause cancer, why are you settling? Why would you settle? Why would you settle? The settlement would not affect claims that stem from pending appeals or that fall outside the deal, according to the company. Those amount to nearly $1 billion, it said. Environmental activists and others criticized the court's ruling on Thursday. Once again, the Supreme Court has sided with big business over people and the environment. Today's ruling is a disaster for public health, said Tara Heinzen, legal director at the advocacy group Food and Water Watch. The harm from this decision will perpetuate our cancer, infertility, and general chronic disease epidemic for generations to come, said Kelly Ryerson, co-executive director of advocacy group American Regeneration and a Make America Healthy Again activist who posts on social media under the moniker The Glyphosate Girl. The sprawling dispute centers on a U.S. law called the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, or FIFRA, that governs the sale and labeling of pesticides and bars states from imposing differing or additional requirements. The measure prohibits pesticides that are misbranded with labels that lack an adequate warning to protect health and the environment. Bayer has argued that Darnell's claims are preempted by this law. The EPA has repeatedly approved labels without such a cancer warning, demonstrating that these products are not misbranded, the company said, adding that labels cannot be substantially changed without the agency's approval. Yeah, when you do a little under-the-table cash to the EPA, too, that tends to get things going your way. Kind of like the Food and Drug Administration and how they legalized that shit that's in diet drinks. I want to say tryptophan, but that's not it. Darnell's lawyer said that despite the EPA's registration of Roundup, the label may still be challenged as misbranded. They also said Darnell's claims are not preempted because Missouri state law that requires products to adequately warn of dangers imposes the same requirements as FIFRA's prohibition on misbranding. Was Orondo. But if Bayer isn't allowed to salt the earth, how will they? I know, right? What is that stuff? What's that stuff that's in Diet Coke? No, the chemical, not NutraSweet. It's the chemical. It makes you depressed. Union investment fund manager Marcus Manns called Thursday's ruling a significant milestone for Bayer, adding that a decade after the Monsanto acquisition, the company is entering a new era of giving people cancer, I guess. While future lawsuits are aspartame, yeah. Well, it's not the same because they're spelled different. But yeah, aspartame, that evil shit. While future lawsuits are not entirely off the table, they will become considerably more difficult. A final breakthrough would come if the settlement is accepted by the plaintiffs and approved by the competent court in July. This would bring Bayer's glyphosate litigation chapter to a definitive close, allowing management to fully refocus on giving people cancer. Operational and strategic matters, Manns said. Darnell sued Monsanto in Missouri State Court in 2019, claiming it failed to warn users of the dangers associated with Roundup and glyphosate. He was diagnosed with a rare and often aggressive form of non-Hodgkin lymphoma, as we told you before, a cancer that starts in the white blood cells, and attributed the disease to his exposure to Roundup starting in 1996. For about 20 years, he was the spray guy for a neighborhood association in St. Louis, killing weeds at local parks without protective equipment, according to court papers. Well, why would he need protective equipment if it doesn't give you cancer, right? Oh, wait a minute, it does. A jury sided with Darnell in 2023, and in 2025, a state appeals court upheld the verdict. So if this is going to be the case, one thing we can do is talk to our local farmers that are using this shit on their crops and say, look, we're not going to purchase from you. We're not going to buy from you. We're not going, we'll boycott stores that sell this shit. I know that sounds easy. It's not easy, especially when you're used to, eating certain foods that come from certain places. But this has got to stop. And this is just another win for a giant corporation. Maybe down the road, some litigation might actually stop this, or at least get them to label the shit as, the same thing happened with cigarettes. They're like, nah, cigarettes don't give you cancer. And now look, every package of cigarettes, like, don't smoke cigarettes or you die. That's pretty much what the labels say now. Because they were forced to put those labels on there. I understand that, Chuck, but that's not the name I was looking. I was looking for aspartame. But thank you for playing along. Yeah, Donald Rumsfeld. Yeah, he got aspartame pushed through. I read that in a David Icke book, as a matter of fact. He said that when he became, when he became defense secretary, he was able to push that through with the FDA. The FDA is corrupt as shit. There's a lot of corrupt people. The American Medical Association, that's another one. Rumsfeld did pick up a lot of plane parts on the Pentagon lawn. Yeah. Yeah, he was out there. He was out there with one of those claw things, picking that shit up. Yeah. It was Rumsfeld that got aspartame pushed through. Yeah, it's great to have buddies in high places, isn't it? So I am the Eggman. I am the Walrus. Cuckoo Cachoo. Guess what? This guy, ex-Trump advisor turned critic, John Bolton, pleads guilty in classified information case. John Bolton, who served as Trump's national security advisor in his first administration before becoming an outspoken critic, has pled guilty in a federal court hearing in Maryland to one count of retaining classified national security information in a case that could send him to prison for up to 5 years. So he pled guilty. He hasn't been sentenced yet. The charge is specifically related to diary entries from his work during Trump's first term that he compiled for his memoir, which was deeply critical of Trump. Bolton was accused of transmitting some of these materials to two relatives whom multiple outlets have reported were his wife and daughter. He initially pleaded not guilty to an 18-count indictment in October last year, but under a plea deal with the U.S. Justice Department, Bolton agreed to plead guilty to the single count of retaining the classified information in a diary-like entries, and also to pay a fine of over $2 million. $2 million. See, you don't go to jail. You just pay fees. Had he gone to trial and lost, Bolton could have faced decades of incarceration. A trial also could have dragged significant classified information into the public realm in order for Bolton to defend himself, which was cited as another reason he took the deal. He's like, no. Bolton is expected to argue for no prison time, but the DOJ may seek to incarcerate him, setting up a showdown at his sentencing, which is due to take place at a later date. So his mustache got 3 years in prison, so he's going to have to shave that off and put like a little orange jumpsuit on it. Yeah, exactly. So it's official. In California, California billionaire tax officially certified for November ballot. Organizers said late Thursday that a proposed one-time wealth tax on California billionaires has been certified to appear on state ballots in November, advancing despite efforts by Democratic governor and haircut champion of the world, Gavin Newsom, and billionaire-funded groups to tank the measure ahead of the June 25 deadline, or June 25th deadline. Today, we're making it clear that we aren't backing down. The billionaire tax will be on the ballot this November, and we intend to win, said Debru Carthen, a radiologic technologist and spokesperson for Billionaire Tax, now the healthcare union-led coalition leading the ballot initiative. If approved by California voters, the proposal would tax billionaires' wealth at a rate of 5%, raising an estimated $100 billion to shore up the state's healthcare system amid devastating federal cuts to Medicaid. Revenue from the tax would also be used for food aid and education, according to the initiative's text. Last week, organizers offered to withdraw their proposal if Newsom agreed to push a 2% tax on billionaire wealth in California's legislature. Newsom, who is widely seen as a 2028 presidential hopeful, rejected the compromise and privately told a major Democratic donor that he was confident the billionaire tax would not appear on California's ballot in November. Oopsie sauce! Somebody told a fib. Organizers emphasized Thursday that despite Newsom's opposition and fear-mongering from billionaires and other opponents, the proposed tax is popular among California voters who, coincidentally, are not billionaires, who are facing an affordability crisis as the wealthiest see their fortunes soar. From 2023 to 2025, the wealth of California billionaires surged by 144%, according to a recent paper co-authored by leading economists. Voters consistently support the billionaire tax by large double-digit margins, and the growing campaign has brought on thousands of volunteers, organizers said in a statement. Supporters of the measure submitted over 1.6 million signatures, more than double the number needed to secure a spot on the general election ballot. To succeed, proponents of the billionaire tax must secure enough votes to pass their initiative while also defeating separate ballot measures that would effectively cancel out the wealth levy. One of the competing initiatives was pushed by a group bankrolled by Google co-founder Sergey Brin, who has spent tens of millions of dollars trying to defeat the billionaire tax and who left California in late 2025 to avoid the potential levy. The competing ballot measures, the Retirement and Personal Savings Protection Act of 2026 and the Improving Transparency, Effectiveness, and Efficiency in California Government Act of 2026, are titled in ways that could lead some voters to support both the wealth tax and proposals that would counteract it. Igor Volsky, director of the Tax the Greedy Billionaires campaign, that's awesome, Tax the Greedy Billionaires, yay, said in a statement that when billionaires can erase democratic initiatives that threaten their fortunes, they have too much power. The fact that the ultra-wealthy and billionaire-backed politicians like Governor Newsom nearly succeeded in killing it in the single best argument for why we need to tax billionaires in the first place, he said. U.S. Representative Ro Khanna, a vocal supporter of the proposed billionaire wealth tax, said Thursday that this issue couldn't be more simple. There are 250 billionaires in a state of 40 million people, said Khanna. What we're saying is tax these 250 billionaires so that millions of Californians can have health care. And I think, I could be wrong, but I do believe this is a one-time tax. I don't know if this is like an annual tax. I'll have to look into that more. But $100 billion out of 250 billionaires. So think about that. That's so what's that? $100 billion, 250. That's like I don't know how much it is. $2.5 billion from each billionaire, maybe. I think that's how that works. But I tell you what's going to happen if it does pass. You're going to see a lot of these high-profile businesses exiting California. You're seeing a lot of that in the movie and TV industry too. A lot of people not filming in LA, not nearly as much because of the high prices. You see them like in New Orleans, in Toronto, in Georgia, getting these sweet deal tax breaks. And you're probably just going to see a lot of these companies move their base from California to somewhere else to try to avoid the levy. That would be my guess. You've already seen people like Joe Rogan leave California because of high taxes. He moved to Texas. You're probably all going to move to Texas. So if you want to go to Texas, that's probably where all the shit's going to be. No offense to Texas, but I've been to Texas a few times. No, thank you. Meanwhile, we go down to Florida. Florida's Alligator Alcatraz Immigration Detention Center has closed, said their shitty governor. This is him right there. Wiggity. In Okeechobee. That's the facility right there, I believe. That got closed down, so we can stop that. There's words to say. The Florida Everglades Immigration Detention Center, known as Alligator Alcatraz, has served its purpose. Governor Ron DeSantis said Thursday, closing the makeshift facility heralded by the Trump administration and denounced as inhumane by pretty much everyone else. DeSantis said the center, which opened in July last year, was always meant to be only temporary until more permanent detention centers could be secured. And federal officials now have that capacity. I'm amazed they're not combining detention centers and data centers. Why not? Save money, huh? We stepped up because there was a gap, but my hope is that they'll be able to handle that. The Republican governor said at a news conference at the facility. Officials announced a temporary closure of the facility earlier this month and sent all of the detainees to other facilities, saying hurricane season made it unsafe to keep them in the Everglades. You think? They actually care about the immigrants now? That's new. Immigration advocates said the center's tents were never safe or humane for holding people. Detainees at the facility have talked about their difficulty accessing lawyers and described poor physical conditions, including worms in the food. Toilets that didn't flush, floors flooded with fecal waste, and mosquitoes and other insects everywhere. They described large white tents with rows of rows of bunk beds surrounded by chain link cages. The air conditioning could shut off abruptly in the sweltering Florida heat. Detainees could go days without showering or getting prescription medicine. Advocates for immigrants said the closure of Alligator Alcatraz does nothing to stop the harm to people who spend months in custody as their families suffer. The Florida Immigrant Coalition said the only winners were corporations and contractors who profited millions of dollars as Republicans pushed an immigration emergency that does not exist. The detention center of tents and trailers was built by DeSantis' administration in a matter of days. The governor and Trump said the center was critical to Republican efforts to return people in the country illegally back to their home countries. There is no question this mission has made the state of Florida safer, said DeSantis, noting that 21,000 people were deported through the facility, even though he forgot that millions of crazy-ass people live in Florida, so safe is a relative term there. Even with the closure of the facility, Florida continues to play a key role with other detention centers and an increased role in helping with immigration enforcement. White House border czar Tom Homan said at Thursday's news conference. Governor DeSantis did a good job, and he's going to continue doing what he's doing to help us make this country safe again, Homan said. This isn't the end of relationship. This is a continuation. Lawyers for the immigrants at the facility said their clients suddenly started leaving for other facilities in South Florida, California, Arizona, Louisiana, and Texas earlier this month, disappearing for about a week before their attorneys and families were told where they were sent. DeSantis said the Everglades airstrip the facility was built around will continue to be used. Environmental groups sued over the detention center, saying Florida officials never got the proper permits or did required reviews of its impact. On its impact, I should say. The state and federal governments built the site with no oversight and closed it with no input, but they will still be held responsible even if the site is closed, said Paul J. Schweep, Schweip, an attorney for Friends of the Everglades and the Center for Biological Diversity. The administration believes it can quietly walk away and leave its mess for others to clean up. The law will not allow them to escape accountability. We'll see about that. We will ask the courts to ensure that the environmental damage is fully addressed, Schweip said in a statement Thursday. So Alligator Alcatraz, no longer a thing, but that doesn't mean that they're not in equally horrible places somewhere in the country, as we are loath to do here in the United States and treat our immigrants like shit. Which is a nice segue, as the Supreme Court rules asylum seekers can be turned back at the U.S. border. You're seeking asylum. These aren't people immigrating. These are people running for their lives from countries that were fucked up by the United States foreign policy. Just putting that out there. The Supreme Court on Thursday said the federal government may systematically turn back asylum seekers along the U.S. border with Mexico, a previous migrant management practice that the Trump administration may want to bring back. A CBC voter, good to see you. Lance, maybe I didn't say hi to you, but I would say hi to you now, damn it. In a 6-3 decision that divided along ideological lines, the court said federal law doesn't require the government to consider an asylum claim for a migrant who has reached a port of entry but has been barred from setting foot on U.S. soil. Writing for the majority, Justice Samuel Alito said everyday examples of how people use the word arrive confirm that someone arrives in a destination when that person enters within its area. He said that should apply to migrants who want to claim asylum by arriving in the United States but who haven't actually crossed into the country. A running back does not arrive in the end zone when he reaches the 1-yard line. A guest does not arrive in a house when he knocks on the front door, Alito wrote, using shitty parables. In a rare exchange after summarizing his decision, Alito took issue with Justice Sotomayor's dissent that she read from the bench to emphasize her opposition. She said that as a result of the majority's decision, quote, more people will die. Alito, in part of his response, pointed out that the policy was not unique to the Trump administration. Limiting the number of people who can claim asylum each day, a policy often called metering, was used by Democrats and Republicans before being rescinded by the Biden administration. The Trump administration, which already has a sweeping ban on asylum at the border that is facing a different legal challenge, wanted to keep metering as an option, calling the policy a critical tool for addressing border surges, which is funny because Trump is a tool. The Justice Department asked the Supreme Court to overturn a ruling that the government is required to process a claim once someone reaches a port of entry. After the decision, White House advisor Stephen Miller, when he's not poking straws in the back of people's necks and drinking their adrenochrome, called asylum applications at the border fake, saying they're not based on legitimate claims of facing persecution in a home country. Asylum claims, once vetted, are recognized by countries around the world and the UN. America's doors are closed fully to asylum seekers, he said as he was biting into probably a child. In a dissent that the other two liberal justices also signed on to, Sotomayor wrote that her conservative colleagues' interpretation of the phrase arrives in doesn't make sense when it comes to asylum. Sotomayor compared the situation to a movie theater policy that says anyone who arrives in the theater may buy a ticket and all tickets must be scanned before entering. If a person walks up to a ticket booth located just outside the theater, it would be unreasonable to think they could not buy a ticket under the policy because they are not in the theater yet, Sotomayor wrote. Perhaps the policy could have been clearer by using the preposition at, but everyone understands from context what the policy means, she added. Erica Pinheiro, executive director of the immigrant rights group Al Otro Lado, said the court's ruling violates international law and is contrary to what Congress intended. See, the United States don't give a shit about international law unless it's the Strait of Hormuz and all of a sudden they're lawyering up. Oh, international law. This decision has destroyed the U.S.'s position as a global leader in promoting the rights of refugees and threatens to serve as a dangerous justification for other countries that unlawfully prevent refugees from crossing borders in search of safety, Pinheiro said in a statement. Policy was challenged by asylum seekers. 13 asylum seekers and El Otro Lado challenged the metering practice in 2017 on behalf of migrants who returned back to Mexico. Vulnerable families, children, and adults fleeing persecution were stranded in perilous conditions where they faced violent assault, kidnapping, and death, their lawyers said last year when the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case, Mornin versus El Otro Lado. They argued the government has improperly limited the number of asylum seekers even when there's sufficient staffing and other resources to deal with them. How do you make a hormuz? You don't pay her. I know that joke. Stop it. It was hormone. But I guess if you pay, never mind. That's for another show. In a 2020 report, internal watchdogs at the Homeland Security Department said, regardless of a port's actual capacity and capability, Border Patrol agents at some crossings routinely told migrants they weren't able to process them. U.S. Customs and Border Protection has said it needs flexibility to manage its varied agenda, which includes stopping drug trafficking and facilitating lawful trade and travel. The old drug trafficking, narco-terrorist. Take a drink. To be granted asylum, a process that can take years, an applicant must demonstrate they have faced persecution based on one of 5 protected grounds: race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. The 1986 Immigration and Nationality Act allows anyone, quote, who is physically present in the United States or who arrives in the United States, unquote, to apply for asylum. In 2024, the San Francisco-based 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals said the term arrives in includes those who encounter officials at the border, whichever side of the border they are standing on. The Justice Department says that interpretation defies the plain text of the law. The justice. You've seen this show before. You know better. There's no good news. Please, Lance, come on. You know better. The practice of not letting an asylum seeker pass through a checkpoint was used periodically during the Obama administration when border officers began turning away hundreds of Haitian asylum seekers at ports of entry in California. In a related story, the Haitians and Syrians who are here probably will that are legally here are probably going to be turned away too. Customs and Border Protection officers could not stop undocumented migrants from physically setting foot on U.S. soil whenever they considered a border crossing too busy. The policy was formalized during the first Trump administration, and the Biden administration lifted the policy but allowed exceptions. As a result, immigrant rights groups say asylum seekers live for months in makeshift camps on the Mexico side of the border without reliable food, shelter, or safety. So, yeah. If you're seeking asylum, probably not a good idea to come here. Actually, this may be a blessing in disguise for asylum seekers, because the way the United States is turning out, some of us may be seeking asylum in other countries. That very well could be. How are we doing? Everybody good? Orange whip? Orange whip? No? We head over to Iran. Iran so far away, I couldn't get away. Iran discussing proposal with Gulf states to establish fees in the Strait of Hormuz. This is from the Libertarian Institute and Kyle Anzalone. Check out their site. They also have antiwar.com. They do a lot of news aggregation over there too. Can't say good things enough about those guys. Iranian officials are in negotiation with members of the Gulf Cooperation Council, that's the GCC, yeah, you know me, about creating a system to charge fees for ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz. According to the Wall Street Journal, Iran is seeking to impose a toll on vessels entering and exiting the Persian Gulf, similar to how Turkey taxes ships transiting the Dardanelles. China is involved in the talks. On Thursday, Secretary of State Aquaman Marco Rubio claimed that GCC states would not make a deal that allowed Iran to charge shipping fees. Additionally, the State Department issued a joint statement with the GCC foreign ministries, which said that the countries rejected any fees in the strait. That's all well and good, but they don't control the strait. The actual strait is controlled by Iran and Oman. The Strait of Hormuz has become one of the central issues in negotiations to end the war against Iran. Before the conflict, ships were able to safely transit the Strait of Hormuz. In response to the U.S.-Israel war, Iran seized control of the waterway. Tehran says any agreement ending the war must recognize that the strait is part of Iran's and Oman's territorial waters, allowing Iran to levy fees. At its narrowest point, the waterway is just 21 miles wide. Trumpy has stated that any peace deal must include the Strait of Hormuz returning to its pre-war status. On Wednesday, Oman announced that it had opened a shipping line outside of Iran's control. The IRGC warned that commercial vessels must use shipping routes approved by Tehran. On Thursday, a ship was reportedly hit by a projectile near Oman. According to the Wall Street Journal, Tehran believes it will generate $40 billion in revenue from ships paying fees for transiting the strait. The Strait of Hormuz is the only entry and exit from the Persian Gulf. A fifth of global oil crosses the strait, as you've probably heard a trillion times over since this all began. Meanwhile, Iran issues a warning over Israeli flights through neighboring airspace. Oh, Israel, always pushing the envelope, aren't you? Iran's Khatam al-Anbiya central headquarters issued a warning on Friday over the movement of Israeli military aircraft through the airspace of neighboring countries en route towards Iran, calling the activity a dangerous act and a threat against the Islamic Republic. The headquarters asserted that should the U.S. prove unable to restrain and control the Israeli regime, Iran will not tolerate any threat against it and considers itself entitled to respond to such actions. The old "we're protecting ourselves" bit. Throwing it back in their face. In another step towards solidifying Iran's sovereignty, the Persian Gulf Strait Authority, the PGSA, which is responsible for managing the Strait of Hormuz, warned on Thursday that vessels moving outside its approved routes would not be covered by safe passage guarantees as the United Nations Shipping Agency paused an evacuation initiative for ships stranded around the Strait of Hormuz following an attack on a vessel in the Gulf of Oman. In a statement posted on the tweeters in response to repeated inquiries, PGSA said any transit outside the framework set by PGSA would not fall under guarantees of safe passage and would not benefit from insurance coverage or related responsibilities. The authority added that any consequences resulting from movement through unauthorized routes would fall on the owner, operator, and commander of the vessel. And that's been a big deal too with these ships, is the insurance on these ships. A lot of these companies that move stuff through the strait are taking a second look at how they're going to be able to move stuff around. Oman said they had an alternative route, but it's nothing like the strait. I mean, you may be able to get one or two ships through there a day or something, but not anything nearly as grandiose as what the Strait of Hormuz can do, or it can allow, I should say. Speaking of Israel and their fuckery, 6 killed, 2 wounded in Israeli drone strikes on southern Lebanon. Remember, there's supposed to be a ceasefire? I think, what was it? I can't remember who said it, but it said Lebanon ceases and Israel fires. That's basically how that works. At least 6 people were killed Thursday and 2 more wounded in a pair of Israeli drone strikes targeting vehicles in the neighboring towns of Zotar and Mefadun in Lebanon's Nabatea district. The first strike was reported in Mefadun, where a drone hit a car on the road just outside of town, killing 2 and wounding 1. A third fatality was later confirmed in the incident. The IDF has yet to comment on the incident. A second vehicle was struck in Zatar, the town immediately south of Mayfadoun, killing another 3 people and wounding 1 more. That attack reportedly targeted a motorcycle along the road. The U.S. claimed Israel had withdrawn some troops from Lebanon as a good faith gesture. Yeah, good faith. Israel and Lebanon both issued statements fairly quickly insisting no such thing took place, and Israeli officials again reiterated they don't intend to order a pullout until Hezbollah is totally disarmed. These attacks continue in spite of multiple active ceasefires being in place, and as Secretary of State Aquaman declared that substantial progress had been made in the negotiation, what is expected to be yet another such ceasefire. When the talks began earlier this week, Israel made clear that they considered their, quote, red lines for any ceasefire, that they won't agree to withdraw from Lebanese territory, nor will they agree to stop attacking Lebanon, so there's fairly limited hope for the next ceasefire amounting to anything substantial. Well, as long as Israel's in the mix, that's for sure. Israel also announced another reservist soldier had died in Lebanon, though this was not a combat-related death. The reservist, a driver, died when the fuel truck he was driving overturned in southern Lebanon. Yeah. So, and Iran sees this, right? Iran said, look, hands off Lebanon. That was part of the MOU, right? The Memorandum of Understanding. That was the number one thing. Lebanon was included, but of course Israel's going to do whatever Israel wants as long as the United States lets them. And if Trump actually pushes back, that probably more of the Epstein files on him come out. You know, yeah, he's just easy to blackmail at this point. And probably in all parts of his life, too. He's just a shitty person. So Netanyahu convinces Trump to back Israeli occupation of South Lebanon. What's this about? So Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly convinced Donald Trump to support a continued Israeli occupation of southern Lebanon. Yadith Aronoth reported on Thursday, this strategy ensures Israel remains entrenched in occupied Lebanese territory under a full ceasefire that reserves Tel Aviv's right to strike perceived threats at its own discretion. So you get to invade a country, occupy that part of the country, and then say, oh, wait, we're being threatened. As with Gaza, occupiers don't get that luxury. That's not how that works. According to the Hebrew outlet, sources described the 5th round of Washington-led negotiations between Lebanon and Israel as the worst round yet, marked by a tense and negative atmosphere. There's your tense and negative atmosphere right there. While the U.S. pressures for pilot zones where the Lebanese army might deploy, Israeli officials admit that internal political constraints and approaching elections make any withdrawal nearly impossible. Both sides are reportedly frustrated by the inclusion of a Lebanon-related clause in the Iran-U.S. Memorandum of Understanding, which we told you about, which Washington allegedly added without consulting either side under Iranian pressure. Hezbollah has complied with the terms of the ceasefire, even as Israeli forces continue sporadic strikes, such as one drone attack on Thursday that killed 3 people. As we told you, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz insists Israeli occupation forces will not withdraw from Lebanon, even if there is an American demand, telling officials in Tel Aviv that over 200,000 Lebanese civilians will not return to their homes. Yeah. So basically telling Trump, no, we're not going to do what you say, even though you hold the purse strings for us. The State Department previously claimed Israel had scaled back its presence as a good faith gesture. However, both Lebanese and Israeli sources denied the claims. Lebanese military officials report the opposite of a pullback, noting that Israeli forces are aggressively enforcing buffer zones, those yellow zones, even against the Lebanese army, and reportedly reversed a previous decision to exit Wazani and Ain Arab. For its part, Hezbollah says it is continuing to monitor the blatant violations of the truce, specifically citing a drone strike in Dawat Kafar Roman that killed 2 civilians, including a municipal worker, while they inspected their homes. The nonstop violations have prompted Tehran to warn that its high-level talks with Washington will be halted should Israel refuse to end its occupation of Lebanese territory. Under Tehran's pressure, a cessation of hostilities was previously imposed, yet Tel Aviv continues to insist on its unilateral freedom of action across the border. Earlier on Thursday, the head of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, Quds Force Ismail Kahani, demanded the withdrawal of occupation forces from all of Lebanon, stressing that if they do not withdraw, Israeli troops will be forced to flee in humiliation and defeat. So we're yet to see what Iran is going to do. If Hezbollah has been holding back, I would assume Iran would hold back for as long as they do, but if Hezbollah gets back in the mix and starts, pew-pewing, then we might see a different story. Okay. And what about the Yemenis? The Houthis? The third H of the Triple H. Hezbollah, Houthis, and Hamas, the Triple H. Well, Yemen warns it will not stand by idly as Israel establishes military presence in Somaliland. That's in Africa. The leader of Yemen's Ansarallah, Abdul Malik al-Houthi, confirmed on Thursday that Sana'a will not stand idly by as Israel establishes a military presence in the breakaway region of Somaliland. Houthi said that Ansarallah is following with great interest the developments in Somaliland, including Israeli efforts to control the Gulf of Aden and the Bab al-Mandab Strait. Somaliland lies on the strategic Horn of Africa, facing Yemen across the Red Sea. Israel aims to gain access to Somaliland territory to extend its influence and contest the Ansarallah-led Yemeni armed forces, the YAF, for dominance over the region's waterways. You may have heard some of the stories of Yemen firing at ships coming through there that was supporting Israel. Trump famously backed off and said, all right, we'll stop bombing you if you stop bombing us. In a speech delivered to commemorate the martyrdom of Imam Hussein in 680 CE, Houthi warned that the YAF could target Israel's presence in Somaliland at any time. He noted ongoing coordination with the movement's allies regarding a possible new confrontation, stressing that Yemen, quote, will not hesitate to do its duty in any new escalation of aggression in any arena. Ansarallah is closely allied with Iran, Hezbollah, and the Islamic resistance in Iraq, collectively known as the Axis of Resistance. In November 2023, Yemen's armed forces closed the Bab al-Mandab Strait to Israeli, U.S., and British-linked ships, targeting them with missiles and drones in response to the genocide in Gaza. Yemeni forces also confronted the U.S. and European navies in the Red Sea, forcing their ignominious retreat. Get out of here, bitch! Go on, bitch! Somaliland declared independence from Somali in 1991 and has enjoyed autonomy from Mogadishu without international recognition since that time. The only country that recognized them was Israel. In December last year, Israel became the first UN member state to recognize Somaliland's claim to independence. Mogadishu rejected Israel's move, calling it a violation of Somali's sovereignty. You don't pay them? Is that what it is? This week, reports surfaced indicating that Israel covertly sent a small group of forces to Somaliland earlier in the year. According to our intelligence reports, the Israeli military selected Israeli soldiers of African heritage, especially Ethiopians, so as not to draw attention to themselves and to blend in more easily with the local community, a senior Somali official revealed. Yeah, because if you get people from actual Israel in there, they stick out like a sore thumb. On June 17th, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz admitted to years of clandestine, under-the-radar security operations with Somaliland. Oh, it's a shock. What, they're being sneaky? That's just terribly shocking. Earlier this month, Somaliland President, that guy, all right, fuck it, I'll try it. Abdirahman Mohammed Abdullahi I gave it a shot. Visited Israel for the first time, marking the opening of a diplomatic mission for the territory in Tel Aviv. During the talks with Israeli leaders, Abdullahi discussed the possibility of allowing Israel to establish a military base on Somaliland territory, which would not be a good idea because especially if they're within range of Iranian missiles. And yeah, so good luck, Somaliland. You've partnered with a real winner. It's probably going to get all your people killed. Some good news for you, Lance. Oh, hello. Let's try that. Eastern Libyan government releases Gaza convoy activists after month of imprisonment. Authorities allied with Khalifa Haftar's administration in Libya have released 10 activists who were detained in the Libyan desert en route to Gaza in late May after a month in captivity. The detainees, including activists from Spain, Poland, the U.S., Argentina, Uruguay, Portugal, Tunisia, and Italy, were held by the Libyan Arab Armed Forces, the LAAF, laugh, chuckle, loyal to Haftar after being arrested as part of the Global Samud convoy. The convoy had been stopped near the city of Sirte while attempting to travel east to reach Gaza. While the majority of its members were then deported, 10 activists were detained. On Wednesday, the foreign ministry said the convoy members would be deported from Libya under a ruling issued by a chamber of the Benghazi Court of Appeal. The Global Samud Flotilla Instagram account released footage of 6 activists arriving in Istanbul on Wednesday and greeting friends at the airport. Hello, Dango. Good to see you. The convoy aimed to travel across land to deliver aid and other services to the inhabitants of the besieged Gaza Strip. Following the group's detention, the Eastern Libyan government's foreign ministry announced that non-Libyans and non-Egyptians would no longer be permitted to travel onwards to Egypt. LAAF has been accused of widespread human rights abuses and war crimes by monitoring groups. Amnesty International said the coalition of armed forces and its allied armed groups in Libya have severely restricted the rights to freedom of expression and association while targeting actual or suspected critics and opponents of Haftar. Libyans, as well as refugees and migrants detained by LAAF, which exercises government-like functions in areas under its control, risk torture and other ill treatment, as well as prolonged detention amid flagrant due process violations, said Sarah Hashash, Amnesty International's deputy director for the Middle East and North Africa. From June 1st and at least until June 4th, the detainees went on a hunger strike to protest their detention and denial of access to their lawyers and families. According to Amnesty International, the activists had faced charges of assembly without authorization and potentially faced up to 6 months in prison and or a fine. Libya has been largely divided since the NATO-backed overthrow of longtime ruler Muammar Gaddafi back in 2011. You remember Hillary Clinton saying, "We came, we saw, he died." Eastern Libya is controlled by Haftar and his allies and is backed by the UAE and Egypt, while a UN-backed government in Tripoli governs the west of the country, backed by Turkey. Launched by North African activists and later joined by international participants, the Gaza-bound convoy included 7 ambulances, 20 mobile homes, and 10 aid trucks, as well as medical professionals, engineers, educators, and legal observers. They were targeted by the LAAF after they entered the 5+5 security zone near the city of Sirte, 5x5, a contested area established under the country's October 2020 ceasefire agreement, hoping to negotiate safe passage onward to Gaza. However, while many activists involved in the Global Samud convoy, which is associated with similar flotillas that have attempted to reach Gaza by sea, praised the commitment of the organizers and their drive to break the siege of Gaza, others said the trip was flawed from the start. Felipe, a 29-year-old Chilean Palestinian activist and veteran of previous sea-based flotillas, said the convoy itself bore some responsibility for the outcome. He told Middle East Eye that during a 2-week stay in Tripoli, it became increasingly clear there had been little planning for the possibility of detentions or for a confrontation with the LAAF. If we were not able to go through East Libya, we should not have kept pressuring them because we were going to shift the narrative from Israel to Libya, he said. We were waiting in the desert for 9 days doing nothing. And I think with these flotillas too, it's like each one that they do, they're learning from the last one. So I would assume there's going to be more of these and that they'll probably avoid Libya if possible, or at least make some sort of, some sort of preparations for that kind of thing. Finally, how you make a Lance, you're so silly. You stupid, Poppy, you stupid. Now this is how you do stuff. I'm not a big super fan of South Korea, but South Korean court jails former first lady for 7 years in bribery case. Ooh, South Korea be a bad place. All them criminals be running the joint. South Korea's former First Lady, Kim Kyung-hee, has been handed a 7-year sentence for taking bribes during and after her husband, President Yoon Suk-yeol's time in office. Kim was found guilty of accepting jewelry, an expensive designer handbag, and other luxury items in exchange for political favors by the Seoul Central District Court on Friday. She exercised her power as First Lady to offer jobs and business favors, lead judge Cho Sun-pyo said, adding that she received the bribes without hesitation. Kim was fined 64.8 million won, or $42,000 cash, and the court ordered the confiscation of the items she received. She denied the charges, saying the gifts weren't bribes, and her lawyers said she will appeal. The court found that she received jewelry worth over 100 million won, about close to $65,000, from the owner of a construction company in exchange for giving his son-in-law a government job. The pastor also gave her a Dior bag and other gifts for favors relating to public officials' duties, the Korean Junyang Daily newspaper reported. To support his bid for office, a former prosecutor gave her a painting by renowned artist Lee Yufan, and the former head of the National Education Commission gave her a golden turtle ornament in exchange for being appointed to the position. The court found the former First Lady is already in jail after being sentenced in April to 4 years for stock manipulation and taking bribes from South Korea's Unification Church. That would be the Moonies, I believe. Aren't they the Moonies? That's the Unification Church. Her husband Yoon is also in prison, serving a life sentence for sending military drones into North Korea, which prosecutors said was aimed at creating a pretext for his declaration of martial law in December 2024 and leading an insurrection. He was ousted from office in 2025 after being impeached. As president, he vetoed 3 opposition-backed bills to investigate allegations against Kim after a video emerged appearing to show her accepting a luxury handbag in 2023. And I'll be going to jail for taking $2.50 and a bucket of chicken from people that want me to spread propaganda for them. He did. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good chunk of change in South Korea. You know, they said, what, $164,000 is over 100 million won. It says in here WON. So it's not to be confused with, I think, the Japanese won. I'm not quite sure how that works. I didn't even know how American money works, to be honest with you. Yeah. So, speaking of propaganda, apparently, if you're Ghislaine Maxwell, you can get 20 years in prison. But if you just, say bad things about ICE, you can go to jail for 50 years. How about that?
Sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these things that are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
It's Chinese one? Okay. Yeah. Japan is the yen, I think. Too many Y currencies. Extreme prison sentences for anti-ICE protesters may have chilling effect. A group of North Texas protesters was sentenced to decades in prison this week for their involvement in a 4th of July protest at an immigration detention facility near Fort Worth last year. And already, First Amendment advocates and political organizers are warning that the case sets a dangerous new precedent for political expression. That's probably by design. Individuals who traveled to the Prairieland Detention Center last summer said the plan was originally to set off fireworks over the facility as part of a noise demonstration. In the end, though, one police officer who responded to the assembly was shot and wounded. Nearly 1 year later, sentences ranging in length from 30 to 100 years have been handed down. They stem from charges of riot, providing material support to terrorists, firearms or explosives charges, and attempted murder. All but one of the 8 defendants were convicted on terrorism charges. One individual who was not at the protest but was convicted of concealing documents after moving a box of political zines received a 30-year sentence. I was worried that the sentencing was going to be pretty harsh, and I guess I was proven correct, said Brenda Guramurthy, a co-chair of the North Texas chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America. From the moment that I first heard about the case, and I think it was around the time that the federal government was talking about cracking down on left-wing organizations, I think that the chilling effect has been in the works for a bit. There you go, start. Wrong show, silly. That was Wednesday. The Prairieland case has become a linchpin in the conservative argument that left-wing violence is on the rise. Sure is, right? Last September, President Trumpy designated Antifa, the anti-fascist political movement that is an umbrella term for all sorts of leftist militant groups and is not actually a real group, a domestic terrorist organization. So he declared an organization that's not an organization, an organization. Prosecutors claim that the 8 defendants tried for the Prairieland protests were linked to the group, and the Justice Department noted that the case was the first ever sentencing of defendants affiliated with Antifa. On October 2025, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton referenced the 24 individuals linked to the Prairieland Detention Center protests as cause for launching undercover investigations into various groups affiliated with left-wing political violence. As opposed to the right-wing violence that we see on the daily. U.S. District Judge Reed O'Connor, who oversaw the case, acknowledged on Tuesday that the sentences were lengthy, but said that the need to deter this type of conduct is high. It's in Texas, I think. He described the July 4th protests as an assault on democracy. So protesting, which is, a part of American democracy, is an assault on democracy. That word, democracy, I don't think it means what you think it means there, judgy. That language is reminiscent of other political persecutions that have taken place in history, such as during the 1918 sedition prosecutions that were used to quell anarchist and socialist ideologies, said Jenny Carroll, a Texas A&M law professor who has written about efforts to police dissent. Those prosecutions face challenges because they butted up against First Amendment protections for political speech, she added. What we generally don't see is judges talking about targeting a particular political persuasion in order to drive home that deterrence message, said Carroll. Your nose is itchy. If we think of criminal law as being a mechanism to deter future behavior, we usually talk of that as universal, or we don't talk about it at all. We say we don't want people to show up and protest and bring guns and fire at law enforcement officers. It's an apolitical statement, but to say we're targeting people of a particular political persuasion, I think that's where it becomes problematic. Again, this is not a group. This is an idea. They're attacking an idea. Carroll said that she expects the sentences to be appealed, and O'Connor's explicit targeting of the protesters' ideologies may be a big basis for those appeals. Hell yeah, if I was sentenced to 100 years, you goddamn right I would fucking appeal. For Gurumudi, the Prairiland sentencing is indicative of a multi-year crackdown on dissent that the North Texas DSA has monitored closely. The chapter is part of a coalition of left-wing groups that regularly protest issues such as immigration enforcement or the war in Gaza, and they rely on a, quote, robust network of volunteers to ensure protester safety. Gurumudi says the Prairiland arrests have not deterred DSA organizers from engaging in political assembly. Still, she acknowledges that the case was so charged in its early days that the group was hesitant to make any sort of comment about the protests or arrests. And what this could lead to is the Streisand, what do they call that? The Streisand moment where it's like, where you're putting emphasis on something that's going to backfire on you. They're going to appeal these, and depending on who the judge is, I'm pretty sure they're going to win these appeals. But again, this is another form of quelling dissent amongst the people. These left-wingers, you know, they're still using like this communist and socialist, you know, boogeymen to scare people. It's ridiculous. We're going to talk about how Muslims are propagandized too and used to control people as well. Coming up in a James Lee video here in just a moment. Meanwhile, down in the land down under, where women go and men plunder, I don't know what those lyrics are. Australia's social media ban for children has had little effect, study finds. Australia's social media ban for under 16s has had little impact on teenagers' scrolling habits, researchers said Thursday in one of the first evaluations of the world-leading measures. Australia in December banned under 16s from the likes of Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok in a crackdown designed to protect children from online bullying and predatory algorithms. But there is little evidence to suggest teenagers have turned away from social media as a consequence, a team of Australia-based researchers found in a peer-reviewed study published by the British Medical Journal. Underage users have been dodging the restrictions by using accounts registered to older people, setting up fake accounts, or by logging into private browsers. In other words, these kids aren't stupid. They know how to get around this stuff, probably better than you and I can. That's for sure. We found insufficient evidence to conclude that exposure to the act had any early substantial effects on social media use among adolescents under age 16, the researchers wrote. There is strong global interest in whether Australia's laws could provide a blueprint for how to rein in increasingly powerful tech giants. A growing mass of nations have either introduced or are mulling similar bans, including the UK, Indonesia, the UAE, and New Zealand. The researchers surveyed more than 400 young social media users immediately before the restrictions came into effect, and again 3 months after. There was little change for users aged 12 to 13, a slight decrease for the 14 to 15 age group, and an increase in use for those aged 16 and older. The findings suggest that the period immediately after the introduction of the act was characterized by limited implementation, incomplete compliance, and substantial circumvention of social media restrictions. Tech companies face fines of up to $49.5 million Australian, that's $34 million here in the U.S., if they fail to show meaningful efforts to weed out underage users. Australia in March accused Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube of failing to meet their obligations. Australia's world-leading social media laws are not failing, but big tech is failing to obey the laws, Communication Minister Anika Wells said at the time. None of this is impossible. None of this is even difficult for big tech, who are innovative billion-dollar companies. The nation's e-safety commission separately flagged significant concerns about Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, and YouTube. A growing body of research suggests too much time online is taking a toll on teen well-being, and Australia's ban has been hailed as a godsend for parents sick of seeing children glued to their phones. Well, you're the ones giving them the phones, parents. Maybe you should do something about that. Although platforms have pledged to abide by the laws, they have warned the measures could instead push teenagers into dark, unregulated corners of the internet. Ah, yes, using the old Tor browsers, going to the dark web. Social media companies bear the sole responsibility for checking that Australia-based users are 16 or older and must prove they have taken reasonable steps to weed out young teenagers. Some platforms are using AI tools to estimate ages based on photos, while users can also choose to prove their age by uploading a government ID. Ah, yes. Kind of like the old Discord trick. Yeah, well, everybody needs to show their ID. They need to give up their information, their private information, just so you can use a shitty platform like that. Yeah, so I kind of thought at the time, these kids are going to get around this somehow. If they want it bad enough, they'll get it. And sure enough, that's what happened. So, as you all know, or probably know, sports ball World Cup is happening here in the United States. FIFA! Do you have World Cup fever? Yes, but I took a couple aspirin and some water, and now I'm fine. Iran says U.S. media restrictions hindered World Cup team coverage. The Iranian Football Federation said restrictions on the national team's official media operations during the World Cup had significantly hampered its ability to provide accurate firsthand coverage from Seattle, while accusing U.S. authorities of denying visas to members of the team's media department. In a statement published Friday, the Federation said the visa denials coincided with the presence of a fake media outlet with a well-documented history of anti-Iran activities. It further emphasized that the outlet operated around the team, including at its hotel and near the venue of an official press conference. That's nice. FIFA, fuck Israel, fuck America. That's awesome. The Federation further stressed that despite not receiving media accreditation from FIFA, fuck Israel, fuck America, the outlet focused exclusively on the activities of a small group of individuals who were allowed to demonstrate under the protection of U.S. police. Shocking, I know. It was a clear effort to present a distorted and misleading picture of the atmosphere surrounding the Iranian national team, the statement said. Oh my goodness, what is itching? I'm not even doing cocaine, I swear to God. If I was doing cocaine, the show would probably have been over about an hour ago. The Federation contrasted those scenes with widespread support from Iranian fans during the team's stay in Seattle. It said hundreds of supporters gathered outside the team's hotel chanting Iran, Iran to demonstrate their backing for the national side, adding that these scenes were genuinely reflected the true atmosphere surrounding the team, but were deliberately ignored and censored by the media outlet. So this is Friday. Earlier Friday, Iran's head coach Amir Galanoui said his side is fully focused on securing a place in the knockout stage of the FIFA World Cup, stressing that the team's priority is bringing pride to the Iranian people despite logistical challenges throughout the tournament. Iran enters Friday's Group G meeting with Egypt after consecutive draws against Belgium and New Zealand, leaving the country's national team with an opportunity to advance while maintaining hopes of finishing top of the group. Our entire focus is going to be on tomorrow's game, Galanoui told reporters on Thursday. We seek to bring joy to our people. Galanoui acknowledged that travel restrictions had affected the team's preparations during the tournament, saying the situation had imposed an additional physical burden on the squad. Iran had been required to travel to and from the United States shortly before and after previous matches, although authorities eased entry arrangements ahead of the encounter with Egypt. The Football Federation of Iran said earlier this week that officials had caused problems during the team's journey from its training base in Mexico for the match in Seattle. According to Galanoui, earlier access to the U.S. was our right, which we should have had in the two previous games. So basically they would do the game, and then they'd have to fly back to Mexico, and they'd fly back for the next one. And no other team had to do that, apparently. Maybe. He added that the squad is now physically in a better condition than before. The restrictions had physically affected us. Galinoy added that Iran is now fitter, and also we are in a better position. Galinoy mentioned previously the struggles the team faced in dealing with U.S. restrictions. They are making the situation more and more difficult, facing us with more hurdles. But we're not going to let that stop us from doing our best, he said, also describing Iran as the most oppressed team in the World Cup, which would be funny if they ended up winning the whole damn thing. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm not privy to how good these teams are. I don't really give a shit about FIFA, to be honest with you. I'm sure a lot of people love soccer, or football, as they call it. I don't really care, but at the same time, there are these people that do care, especially these athletes who are participating. And, you know, you hate to see this shit happen, but, you know, it's America. What do you expect? Delicious. Meanwhile, sanctioned ICC judges sue Trump in the U.S. over an attack on judicial independence. So a federal court in New York has summoned Trumpy to respond to a lawsuit brought by 3 sitting judges of the ICC, that's the International Criminal Court, who accuse his administration of punishing them with sweeping sanctions for their work on investigations involving Israel and the U.S. The summons, issued on Thursday by the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York, requires the government to respond within 60 days to a complaint filed a day earlier by Judges Kimberly Prost of Canada, Salome Balungi Bosa of Uganda, and Rain Alapini Gasu of Benin. Yeah, butchered those. The case names Trump as the lead defendant, along with Secretary of State Aquaman, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, the Strait of Vermouth guy, and Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. It also names the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, which maintains the sanction list, and its director, Bradley Smith. It is the first time that ICC judges have personally gone to court to challenge their designation under Executive Order 14203, which Trump signed on February 6th. The order declared a national emergency over the court's investigations into U.S. and Israeli nationals and authorized asset freezes and travel restrictions against foreign officials who take part in or support them. The 3 judges are among 8 on the court who have been sanctioned, alongside ICC prosecutor Karim Khan. His 2 deputies, the UN Special Rapporteur for the Occupied Palestinian Territories, and 3 Palestinian human rights organizations. Each of the 3 has served on judicial panels dealing with alleged crimes in Afghanistan in the case of Prost and Bosa, or in Palestine in the case of Alpini Gansu. James Golston, executive director of the Open Society Justice Initiative and co-counsel for Prost, said the sanctions were an unprecedented attack on judicial independence and the rule of law. He said the measures had inflicted concrete and severe harm on judges who had done nothing other than carry out their duties. The complaint describes the sanctions as tantamount to the financial death penalty. Prost has had her U.S. bank account frozen, can no longer use credit cards, and has seen her accounts with American companies such as Amazon, Google, and Expedia limited or canceled, Golston told Middle East Eye. She has also effectively lost access to health insurance after her provider refused to pay out medical claims and other insurers declined to cover her. Before joining the ICC in 2018, Prost serves as a prosecutor at Canada's Department of Justice and an ombudsman for the UN Security Council's Al-Qaeda Sanctions Committee, overseeing the kind of measures now being used against her. I have to say, for the longest time, I thought ombudsman or ombudsperson or ombudsman meant that they sold weed. But that's why we learn, right? We learn so we can be better people. She knows a great deal about sanctions, and in some ways it's rather extraordinary that she's now being subjected to these severe sanctions, really solely for undertaking her job as a judge seriously and professionally, Golston said. The lawsuit sets out 3 core arguments for why the sanctions should be struck down. The first is that the order exceeds the authority Congress delegated to the president under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA, the statute Trump invoked to impose the measures. The judges contended the sanctions conflict with another act of Congress, the American Service Member Protection Act, passed in 2002 to address the prospect that the court could investigate U.S. nationals or those of allied states outside the Rome Statute. ASPA permits the president to respond to such a scenario only in narrow ways by providing legal representation, presenting exculpatory evidence, or defending U.S. interests before the court. It does not authorize sanctions, Goldston explained. Even in the extreme case of an American being detained by the ICC, he said the law expressly bars the executive from using inducements to sway the court's decisions. The sanctions are precisely that, Goldston argued. They're trying to induce judges to refrain from deciding on the basis of facts and law and instead take into account their own personal interests, that is, the threats to their own financial and personal well-being imposed by these sanctions. The plaintiffs also dispute that any genuine emergency exists. Goldston said the IEPA may be used only against an unusual and extraordinary threat, but Washington's objection to the court's jurisdiction over non-party nationals is decades old. President Bill Clinton, remember Clinton, yeah, raised the same concern when he signed the Rome Statute in 2000, and in January, a U.S. official at the UN stated that none of the concerns was new and that Washington had been making the same point for nearly 3 decades. Both Afghanistan and Palestine are ICC member states, and the Rome Statute has long allowed the court to act over crimes on a member's territory, regardless of the perpetrator's nationality. Spoiler alert, the U.S. and Israel are not part of the ICC, just so you know. The second argument is that freezing the U.S.-based assets of Prost and Bosa breaches the Fifth Amendment in 2 ways, depriving them of property without due process and taking private property without compensation. The third is that the designations violate the Administrative Procedure Act because they are arbitrary, capricious, and an abuse of discretion. The complaint says the administration has produced no specific evidence, where have you heard that before, to justify them and failed to weigh the damage to international accountability efforts, including ICC investigations the U.S. itself supports, such as those in Sudan, Libya, and Ukraine. Goldston said underlying all 3 is an attempt to make judges weigh their own welfare against their oath of office. The sanctions seek to compel these judges to refrain from their sworn oath to decide cases on the basis of an impartial assessment of the facts and the law, he said. That is a fundamental threat to the rule of law. The case is the 5th to challenge Executive Order 14203. In 4 earlier suits, courts found the order unconstitutional for imposing impermissible restrictions on the free speech of those assisting the court, including a separate challenge brought on behalf of Francesca Albanese, the sanctioned UN Special Rapporteur. This is the first to target the designation of the judges themselves. The Open Society Justice Initiative represents Prost with the law firm Foley Hogue, acting as co-counsel. When asked about the prospects of success, Goldston said, "We are hopeful that these arguments will be persuasive, but that is what the judicial process is for. We will see what the outcome is." So yeah, they're trying to put a literal freeze. Well, not a literal freeze. They're not trying to make them turn them into popsicles, but they're trying to freeze these judges out so they don't go after the bullshit that Israel is doing. And by bullshit, I mean evil shit that they're doing. Yeah, so they will appeal this, I'm sure, and hopefully they'll win. We'll see. Meanwhile, in the UK doctors reject IHRA definition and back protections for staff speaking on Palestine. The British Medical Association has, this is the BMA, not the American, that corrupt piece of shit. The British Medical Association has voted to drop the controversial IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, saying it had a chilling effect on free speech in the workplace. You think? Doctors from across Britain backed the motion at the BMA's annual conference on Tuesday amid growing concerns that healthcare workers are being punished for expressing views on international conflicts. The motion called on the doctors' union to provide urgent guidance and support to members who face disciplinary action or professional detriment for expressing legitimate political views or ethical concerns about international conflicts, including Palestine and Israel. The text also urged NHS, I guess that's National Health Service England, and NHS organizations to conduct comprehensive risk assessments before implementing policies that could affect employees' freedom of expression. NHS England formally adopted the IHRA definition in October last year, a move that was welcomed by some Jewish organizations but criticized by civil liberty groups and pro-Palestine campaigners. Last week, the Department of Health and Social Care, the DHSC, endorsed a review into anti-Jewish hate and other forms of racism in the NHS by the UK government's advisor on anti-Semitism, Lord John Mann. Lord Mann. Not to be confused with Jack Lord from Hawaii Five-0. The review recommends mandatory anti-Semitism training for 1.5 million NHS staff members, as well as banning them from displaying political symbols in the workplace and preventing them from attending protests in their uniforms. Mann's review of anti-Semitism relies on the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. Critics of the definition argued that several of its accompanying examples risk conflating criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism, potentially restricting legitimate political speech and advocacy for Palestinian rights. Yeah, so if you're criticizing Netanyahu or the Israeli government, then you're considered anti-Semitic, and we all know that's bullshit. Supporters of the IHRA definition argue that it is an important tool for identifying and tackling anti-Semitism and that it does not prevent criticism of Israeli government policies. Sorry. Bullshit. Bullshit. So sorry. I got a little tickle in my throat there. Delicious. Excuse me. Earlier this month, the Coalition of Medical Associations, representing over 13,000 healthcare workers in the UK, called on the British government to immediately pause the rollout of a series of measures set out by Lord Mann that would censor pro-Palestine advocacy within the NHS. Following the outbreak of Israel's genocidal war on Gaza, several cases have emerged on medical workers being reprimanded for showing their support for Palestine or using Palestine-related memorabilia in the workplace, like even wearing the keffiyeh thing. They wouldn't let them do that. They include a British Palestinian nurse who was ordered to remove a background on his video calls that showed a fruit bowl containing a watermelon because it could be perceived to be anti-Semitic. Watermelon, anti-Semitic. Watermelon gets a bad name. It's so delicious, especially in the summertime when it's so hot outside. The watermelon has become a symbol of solidarity with the Palestinian cause as it shares its colors with the Palestinian flag and is harder for social media algorithms to censor. So good on the British Medical Association. The American Medical Association, still a bag of shit. Basically, it's a turkey, as they say in bowling. We're doing a 3-fer with Middle East Eye. They do some good reporting. So this might mainly for our overseas folks, especially in the UK. Billionaire who owns Camden Market finances Israeli military programs. What? A billionaire? Financing Israeli that's shocking. British consumers who spend money on 3 popular online competitions to win cars and cash and who shop at a popular London market are funding an Israeli billionaire who finances the Israeli military, according to a report in Novara Media. Teddy Sagi, The owner of the tourist hotspot Camden Market in London is also the majority shareholder, 69.5% of shares, nice, of Winvia Entertainment Group, a British prize draw operator which owns the websites RevComps, Best of the Best, that's BOTB, and Click Competitions. According to Novara's report, hundreds of thousands of Britons pay money into these sites hoping to win luxury cars, homes, watches, tech prizes, and more. BOTB says it has over 500,000 winners and has awarded more than 147 million pounds in prizes. Not like the weight of the prizes. That's English money. Sagi is worth around $7.1 billion, according to Forbes. As well as Camden Market and the prize draw sites, he also owns the gambling software company Playtech, the British-Israeli company Cape Technologies, as well as a string of VPN companies, including ExpressVPN, CyberGhost, Private Internet Access, and ZenMate. He has made several donations to the Israeli military, including since the genocide in Gaza began on October 2023. Novara reported that in November 2023, when Israel had already killed over 15,000 people in Gaza, Sagi donated 1 million shekels, about $340,000, towards taxi rides for Israeli troops from the front lines back to their homes while on leave. Prior to that, Sagi donated more than $3 million to an Israeli Defense Ministry scheme, which provided discharged soldiers with scholarships. He also offered jobs to Israeli troops in his companies. During a gala in 2019, the Israeli billionaire was named in the 2021 Pandora Papers, in which he was linked to at least 60 companies headquartered in tax havens. I know, another shock. In 1996, Sagi served 5 months in an Israeli jail after being convicted of fraud and bribery. Winvia Entertainment was approached by Novara Media for comment. A UN Commission of Inquiry report released this week found that Israel had committed genocide in Gaza due to the deliberate targeting of Palestinian children. Israeli forces have killed over 20,000 children and injured 44,000 more since October 7, 2023. Srinivasan Muralidhar, chair of the commission, told reporters during a press conference. Even after the October 2025 ceasefire, children continue to be killed and seriously injured, with continued disregard by Israel for the ceasefire and for the protection owed to Palestinian children under international law, he said. In total, Israeli forces have killed over 73,000 people, which is not accounting for those that are still under the rubble in Gaza, and wounded thousands and thousands others since the genocide began. So yeah, I don't know. Hang on a second. I'm allergic to shitty people, apparently. Yeah, so, and it's not just the UK. There's others around the world too. And hopefully the people in those countries are keeping an eye on those billionaires and doing what it takes to stop them from doing what they're doing. Ooh, that sneeze, man, that was crazy. Another shock. Well, actually, this is kind of shocking, really. Percentage saying U.S. too supportive of Israel at all-time high in a new poll. The number of American voters who say that the U.S. is being too supportive of Israel is at an all-time high, according to a new poll. In the Quinnipiac University survey, 48% of respondents said the U.S. backs Israel too much. 7% said the U.S.'s backing of Israel was not enough, and 38% said it was about right. 6% were unsure or gave no response. This is the highest percentage of voters thinking that the U.S. is too supportive of Israel since Quinnipiac University first asked this question of registered voters in January 2017, said the authors of the survey. Broken down by party, 66% of Democrats 20% of Republicans and 55% of independents surveyed said that the U.S. is backing Israel too much. Oh, the 34% of the Democrats. You know who those people are. In the last few years, Israel has faced criticism from around the world over how it has conducted itself in recent military campaigns, especially in Gaza. As a result of Israel's war against Hamas, which began over 2 years ago, Palestinians in Gaza have faced mass death and destruction of infrastructure. Excuse me. The U.S. entered the current war against Iran alongside Israel almost 4 months ago, which has been found to be unpopular among Americans in recent polling. Last week, Vice President J.D. Vance advised Israeli officials against speaking out and criticizing the recent U.S.-Iran peace deal. He suggested that Israel should be grateful for American partnership as it faces isolation around the globe, basically telling Israel to shut the fuck up. If I was in the cabinet of the Israeli government, I might not be attacking the only powerful ally that I have anywhere left in the entire world, Vance said at a press conference at the White House. The poll took place from June 18th to June 22nd, featuring 1,165 self-identified registered voters and plus or minus 3.4 percentage points as its margin of sampling error. And that's the thing about being in the age of the internet and being able to share anything that happens within a moment's notice. Israel can't hide from this shit anymore. They can't claim to be victims when they're the aggressors. They can't claim self-defense when they're occupying territory. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works, as the old lady said about the Facebook wall. But it's good to know that more people are getting aware, becoming aware of what's actually happening and not towing these stupid party lines. But we need more. We need a hell of a lot more. Finally, in our propaganda watch here, Ben Shapiro has a movie out, and James Lee is going to tell us about this. This is wild.
Come on, this is so bad. It's so cringe. It's so lame. It might even be funny in an ironic train wreck kind of way if their aim wasn't genocide. We all know that the biggest threat to America is radical Islam and fundamental Islamic terrorism. So we got to make a movie about it to warn the world. Well, not me, but Ben Shapiro, who announced today that the Daily Wire is making a new movie about radical Islamic terrorists who are imposing Sharia law on a woke college campus. First off, are we still talking about woke? It's the Trump administration. Kamala and Joe are long gone. There are dirt bikes and UFC fights on the White House lawn. And get a load of this log line, okay? Quote, when radical Islamic terrorists hijack a liberal college's pro-Palestine encampment to enforce barbaric Sharia law on students and execute infidels in a makeshift caliphate, a ragtag band of red-blooded students, a security guard tired of Uncle Tom smears, and a Delta Force vet must arm up to save their clueless peers and keep America from surrendering to the enemy on its own soil. Yeah, guys, don't you remember how radical and bloodthirsty these Ivy League protesters were?
I
don't know if you caught the caption on that clip, but very important. Never, ever mistake Judaism for Zionism. Because speaking of radical terrorism, this literally just happened where I live in San Diego. This guy wearing an IDF t-shirt holding a U.S.-Israel combined flag literally was in a shoot-off against the San Diego Police Department, and the incident apparently unfolded after he threatened his mother and then barricaded himself inside his apartment. But you know, it's the Muslims who are the ones we really need to fear. And here is the description of the trailer, okay? It begins apparently with a rapid fire montage of terror footage from a 9/11 jet piercing the World Trade Center to an ISIS beheading, as well as college campus unrest and footage of Secretary of State Marco Rubio. It ends on the quad of a sleepy Virginia campus as the call to prayer rings out and an ISIS flag billows atop a pole. The students, terrorists, stop what they're doing, drop to a prayer mat, and orient themselves towards Mecca. The trailer cuts to the tagline, coming soon or already here. You literally cannot make this stuff up, okay? This reads a little bit like the Onion satire kind of thing, but it is 100% real. This is a serious movie that they're investing millions of dollars to make. Here's a little bit of it.
Jesus. You know what's funny? So a lot of people will actually probably believe this is real shit too.
Come on, this is so bad. It's so cringe. It's so lame. It might even be funny in an ironic train wreck kind of way if their aim wasn't genocide. Okay, people should know this is part of the Israeli Hasbara strategy. Okay, that they're using Islamophobia to distract from a genocide. Don't fall for it. It says every American should recognize these increasingly unhinged attacks for what they are. Cynical attempts to protect Israel from criticism by frightening the American public. Quote, Dropsite News recently revealed that the Israeli Foreign Ministry is conducting a global survey of the United States and European nations to gauge Western attitudes towards Israel. The preliminary results show widespread opposition to the Israeli government because of its genocide in Gaza, you think? But the results also show that support for Israel rebounded by 20 points when the pollster stoked fears of radical Islam or jihadism. And that is exactly to a T what Ben Shapiro is doing right now. Ben Shapiro, the Israeli Hasbara agent, allegedly, but also based on our own two eyeballs, he's obviously not very shy about who he is, because they know Israel's reputation is 100% cooked. Ben Shapiro is cooked. They ain't coming back. But if they could create another bigger enemy to distract people, maybe, you know, maybe we wouldn't pay as much attention to what's going on over there and direct anger somewhere else. That is the sole mission of AstroTurf Media.
You thought that Ben Shapiro is losing people's attention? You thought that Ben Shapiro was losing money? Nobody's paying attention to his show anymore? Surely that is the end? It's the end until a conglomerate comes in and pays him out. They're going to give him $100 million with this $750 million valuation. And now they just have more chips to play with in perpetuity. It's not based on an actual estimation of Daily Wire's profitability or the chances that they're going to get the youth back. Think to yourself, what are the prospects that you would ever watch Daily Wire again? Or anybody that you know for that matter.
So there's two ways basically to survive in the media business. You either A, you tell the truth and build an actual audience that will support you and pay money to watch you, or B, you do state-sponsored, state-funded propaganda, and in this case, for a completely different state than the United States, a foreign state. Semaphore had the scoop a couple of days ago reporting that the Daily Wire is seeking strategic investors to target an IPO, which is basically those strategic investors, those institutional investors, handing retail investors a burning bag of money that has been lit on fire and say, here you go. Quote, the Daily Wire, one of the biggest players in conservative media, is in talks to take on at least $100 million in investment with an eye on initial public offering in a few years' time. Now, let me show you the numbers and you tell me if this makes any sense. Their subscriber numbers are collapsing, okay? They're in free fall because nobody in America wants to listen to an Israel first show. And their advertising numbers are also down, bar the 2026 astroturfing that they've been doing, which is that they're buying YouTube views to trick their advertisers into believing that they're getting more views while their subscribers are disappearing. And I'm not just saying that. We have the literal proof of this happening. We've done a video on it before, and more people have been posting receipts and screenshots of it since. This one from Ethan Levins, who says, quote, Ben Shapiro has placed his entire show as a YouTube ad. I wish I was joking. Yeah, me too, brother. Me too. And that's the thing. This would all be kind of funny if there wasn't a full-on genocide undergirding this entire media astroturfing project, which is not something that's new. This has been going on for a very long time, albeit I wasn't aware of it. A lot of other people weren't aware of it, and we had to be awakened to it after October 7th. This is Tucker Carlson talking about it.
We felt a little bit of that after 9/11 when people bought the lies about, there were many lies about 9/11, but the net result was to convince Americans that they were under siege from global Islam, that there were 1 billion people trying to kill them. I felt this way myself. And many times I said on television, the problem is Islam, the problem is Muslims. Like, they all want to kill us. They're all crazy. They're all in this lunatic suicide cult created by Muhammad in the 7th century. And I believe that. I was hysterical. I believed that. No, that's not true. Nothing about that is true. But I believed it.
Yeah, we are what we consume. So the existence of shows like the Daily Wire or other platforms like it, the Free Press, TPUSA, pretty much all of cable news, both left and right, and increasingly, and this is alarming, increasingly independent podcasters who have now been co-opted, all of them are trying to convince you that it is morally okay to mass slaughter women and children. So I'm just going to say today that no matter how difficult, we must never give in to that kind of darkness and evil. That is it for me this week. I'm curious, what do you think is the biggest threat to American democracy? Sound off in the comment section below. If you want to support my journalism so we can fight back against these propagandists like Ben Shapiro, please go to my website, 5149jameslee.com, sign up to become a member. There's also an option to give a one-time donation, no subscription necessary, or you can buy some merch, including the brand new America 250 collection. But if not, no worries at all. Please just do me a big favor and hype this video, give it a thumbs up, share it, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you can be the first to know when my next video drops. As always, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you in the next one.
You built your identity and platform off of no censorship and freedom of speech, and facts don't care about your feelings and all this shit.
It's also funny that that window happens to end where his beliefs end.
Isn't
it interesting?
You would say that.
Not being pro-Israel, that's where the window ends. That's also your specific personal belief.
What?
So I just don't see.
So you can't have an opinion on your platform that is not pro a country that is not ours?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Crazy. I wish.
So is the Daily Wire an American media platform, or is it an Israeli media platform? I'm just asking.
This guy's cooking.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good video there. And yeah, it's it would be funny. Is this thing on? You guys hear me okay? I don't know, sometimes this thing works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, these fuckers that are gonna keep trying to push this crazy shit. You know, they keep saying that Iran is the biggest sponsor of terrorism, and I'm like, at this moment, the only one they're terrorizing is Israel because they're blowing the shit out of them. So, you know, and plus now you have what is it? I think we reported a while back that Israel has is spending hundreds of millions of dollars on Hasbro. That I mean, they already have, but they're like just approved like $700 and something million worth of Hasbro. They're desperate. And to my regular ass Jews out there, you know, solidarity to you, but fuck Israel and fuck those fucking baby killers, man. Those pieces of shit. What's up, Yoninah? Good to see you, buddy. Hopefully you're doing well, sir. Yeah. So we have to stay vigilant trying to remind our normie friends that no, these people that are doing this stuff are not good people. I don't care what your holy book says. These are not good people. These are not even the same people that are in the Bible. These are like totally different people. These are Zionists. These are people that are out for world domination, and they think that the rest of us are just lesser and that we should be conquered, you know, and they're using the United States government as a hand puppet to achieve those goals. So I know it's hard to do, but we have to get people out of their comfort zones and say, look, this is the reality of things going on. You're being lied to, you're being propagandized, you're being used, and you know, don't have a stick in your ass and a wrapper around your head, because we don't want you to be a sucker. Okay. Yes, exactly. Suckers. I'm doing something a little different. I usually talk about this, but we of course we talk about our mutual aid folks. All the links are down below. If you can help them out, we really appreciate it. If you can't donate, if you could share the links, that would be good too. Again, the links are down below in the description. And if you know somebody that's in need of mutual aid, if they have like a GoFundMe or some sort of fundraising mechanism for themselves, let us know. Email me at extrabulla@gmail.com. We'll put them in the mix and hopefully get the word out to everybody. I think that's very apropos there, Yoninah. Life's not hard. Not as hard when we realize we're together. That's why they try to keep us separated. Not like the Offspring song. You got to keep them separated. We got to get together. That's what we got to do. And speaking of getting together, how about tomorrow night for the Secret Show? Moved it to Saturday. Sometimes it's on Fridays, but now it's back on Saturdays again. A little earlier time than it was before when it was there. 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Specific time on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook when Facebook works, which it wasn't working today. Take a little break from all the craziness, all the serious psycho shit, and have some fun. We got silly stuff on there. We have some sciencey stuff, some animal stuff. It's pretty cool, and it's good. It's just a great time to hang out with everybody and enjoy one another in a social setting where we're not, you know, worrying about something for 2 hours. Sometimes you need a break. I'm just saying. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Finally, today, you know, we have all this technology now that can look out into space, and we can not only see stuff out in space, but we can analyze it through different light signatures, chemical signatures, that sort of thing. And apparently, astronomers find the biggest super puff planets yet that are lighter than cotton candy. Yeah. So, but they're not made of cotton candy, just so you know. So don't go out there and try and eat a planet. That'd be silly. It'll be tomorrow night, CBC. tomorrow night, Saturday night, Saturday night. Astronomers have uncovered a pair of giant planets that are lighter than cotton candy, super puffs the size of Jupiter. The featherweight pair orbiting a star 1,110 light years away are the biggest exoplanets found to have less density than cotton candy. That makes them the lightest known planets of their size, said the University of Oxford's George Dransfield. These two planets have densities comparable to a nice blob of shaving foam fresh from the can. Shaving foam. Dransfield said in an email. She and her team reported their findings Wednesday in monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society. Dransfield suspects these fluffy, wispy worlds are probably white or blue, depending on whether the skies there are cloudy. No shades of cotton candy, pink. What? No pink planets? That would be awesome. The planets are probably mostly hydrogen and helium, although it will take follow-up observations by NASA's Webb Space Telescope to confirm their chemical makeup. Detected by NASA's TESS satellite over the past decade, these two especially puffy puffs orbit. It's the puffy puffs and the puffy puff gang orbit a star in the southern constellation Volans, known as the Flying Fish. The researchers studied the planet's orbits using telescopes on Earth to determine their density from 1,110 light years away. A light year is nearly 6 trillion miles, or 9.7 trillion kilometers, for those who are not down with miles. So next, the next state fair that comes along, you're going to see the big giant planet and people are going to reach up. Ooh, cotton candy. I want all of it. Or like the astronaut ice cream that's freeze dried too. Yeah, pretty sure you can't land on those planets. Even with the puffy puffs, I think still there's like some sort of gravity thing where you could probably get crushed. And I guess death by cotton candy is probably not a bad thing, but try to stay alive. That's it. That's all the show you get today. Once again, we'll be back next week for this show at whatever time. It's usually we've been moving it up to noon Eastern. It seems to be working out. That way I can get in some last minute news in the morning rather than having to jam it all in the evening before. Tomorrow night's secret show at 11 p.m. Eastern, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook maybe. I'll be back Wednesday also with Laine P for the Undercurrent on Wednesday morning. If you're not subscribed to the Undercurrent, please do so. It's the Undercurrent, the number 4, and YOU after that. Give us a like and a follow. We appreciate it. And also, next Wednesday is July 1st, which means the 2-year anniversary of the Mornin Extra show. I know I said this at the top of the show. Like, why didn't I do a 1-year anniversary? Apparently, I'm allergic to odd numbers. And also, my memory was shitty, and I forgot that there was there was a 1-year anniversary. So, yes. So, I may be doing a special Mornin Extra show in the evening on Wednesday. I'll let you know through the various platforms and whatnot. Other than that, I'm going to say bye. Peace out, home slice. Word to the mother. Audi 5000 with a sunroof. You know the thing. Take care, guys. We'll see you when I see you. Peace.
This is City Alpha 5. Woo!
Soon.